Bonjour, and welcome to Sports on the Rocks with Ken Larimer. I'm your host, Ken Larimer. And no, we don't have a blender. We're all out of mint, and the espresso machine on the fritz. So all I'll be serving you is a big glass of what is happening around the sports world. Tonight, coming to you all the way from Paris, France, from my makeshift studio on the 6th floor of a no-elevator building. But on today's episode, NFL Conference Championship Sunday recap. Caitlin Clark takes a page out of the LeBron playbook. Giannis and Dame play coy about the firing. Former LSU wide receiver Kayshon Boutte gambles on himself. Vince McMahon allegations continue. Jim Harbaugh pulls a Saban. And of course, last call. If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, please follow, like, and subscribe. And you can always keep up with the pod on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at SportsOTRocks. But first, before I take you around the sports world, a look back at the NFL Conference Championship Sunday. And what an NFL Conference Championship Sunday it was. We started off with the AFC Championship, Chiefs 17, Ravens 10. The game started off bully ball. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, starting a little beef with Justin Tucker pregame. The video looks worse than it is. It's Patrick Mahomes taking Justin Tucker's tee, which for some reason was on the goal line, taking it, throwing it away. Justin Tucker puts it back. Travis Kelce comes back, takes the tee, tosses it, takes his helmet, tosses it, takes basically all of Justin Tucker's belongings and tosses it. Looks like they're kind of bullying this kicker, which I'm all for. But we find out later, I found out later through some journalists on Twitter that basically it's completely out of habit for kickers to be set up at the goal line to be practicing kicking, which makes perfect sense. So maybe a little Justin Tucker getting under the skin of the Chiefs before the game, obviously knowing the result, didn't matter. But kicking off the game, a weird administrative timeout due to drone interference. Post-game, CBS, Jim Nantz saying, not our drone, not our problem. Big problem for the telecast. Threw it immediately to commercial, come back. Again, I'm looking up online, whose drone was it? They still don't know. And actually, earlier in the season, there was already a drone interference at a Baltimore Ravens game. So not the first time it happened this season. First time on a nationally broadcasted game. Not unfamiliar to a national broadcast, Taylor Swift once again in the building, and big game Kelce shows up, shows off for his girlfriend, looking ahead to Super Bowl odds. Travis Kelce to propose on field after the game to Taylor Swift, plus 190. So if you're a believer, if you're a Swiftie and you think this gal is getting married after the Super Bowl, plus 190 is your bet, your prop bet for the Super Bowl. I will not be betting it. But Travis Kelce putting up a big game with Swiftie in the stands. 11 catches, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. Scores the first touchdown, and on that first drive, could not be stopped. Big catch after big catch. He looked bigger than everybody else on the field. He looked stronger than everybody else on the field, at least on that first drive. But if you watch the game, he was pretty much unstoppable and a big target for Patrick Mahomes whenever he needed a safety valve. The Ravens offense scoring shortly after that first touchdown by Travis Kelce and mocking the swag surfing celebration, the touchdown coming from Zay Flowers, who we'll get to more news about Zay Flowers in a second. But Zay Flowers' huge touchdown catch, then we never see a score from the Baltimore Ravens again in the game. So maybe the swag surf curse. But of course, the swag surfing came from, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, big blowout game for the Chiefs. And Donna Kelce and the whole Swift Kelce box is doing the swag surfing because obviously Taylor Swift, cool mom. But the Ravens mock swag surf maybe bit them a little bit in their butt because they never see the end zone again after that. Patrick Mahomes starts perfect, either 10 for 10 or 11 for 11. Of course, his only drop on that streak, breaking his perfect completion record to start the game, is to Richie James. Who? Richie James, who drops a wide open softball right on the runs a little like route to the left, wide open, nobody on him, throws it right to his hands, and he literally, it almost looked like he threw it on the ground. It wasn't a catch, wasn't even close. So Mahomes perfect to start the game, despite Richie James. Who? Richie James. But the Chiefs offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, really came into this game with a fantastic game plan, winning game plan, because the Ravens D has been quick and has gotten to quarterbacks all year. But the Chiefs got rid of the ball. Patrick Mahomes got rid of the ball quickly, and which led to his obviously perfect completion record to start the game. He was getting the ball out of his hands quick. They were running the ball with Pacheco. The plays were just really fast. And when you're playing against a Ravens defense, one of the fastest in the league, one of the most aggressive in the league, you need to get that ball out. You need to get it out quick. And that's what they did, and that's why they won this game. On the other side of the ball, Lamar Jackson, with possibly the coolest stat I've ever seen in a football game. And if you look it up online, it literally says Lamar Jackson pass short left to Lamar Jackson for 13 yards. How is that possible? How could a man throw the ball to himself and gain 13 yards? It's not physically possible unless the defense tips the ball really high up, and then you're a super athletic quarterback like Lamar Jackson, who some say is not a quarterback. But if you can throw the ball to yourself, you're a quarterback in my book. Throws the ball, tips it up, catches the ball quick enough to gain 13 yards on the play on what should have been a batted ball, and the play is over. But one of the most athletic plays of the playoffs up to that point. Because what we have next is probably one of the more athletic catches we've seen in this game in the playoffs. And I will say that a few times in this recap, because it seemed like everybody was making magical plays. They were all wizards on the field this weekend. Zay Flowers with possibly the craziest sequence in playoff history. And it starts with a 54-yard bomb catch and a great run after the catch. And then, of course, he stands up, spins the ball on the defender's head, flexes in his face for way too long. They call it taunting penalty. Now, taunting penalties, I've had it up to here with taunting penalties. Let the boys taunt. I want to see taunting in the NFL. These are grown men. They're going out. They're risking their lives. Why shouldn't they be allowed to taunt? I understand maybe at lower levels, maybe in even other sports, but the NFL is physical. When somebody makes a big play, they're all getting paid. They're all risking their lives. Most of them will get CTE. Let them enjoy the big play. Let them taunt and flex. It's not like he punched the guy in the face. He stood up, spun the ball, he flexed, gave the guy a little stare. That was it. Now, also on the tackle, when Zay Flowers is tackled after that catch, replay shows the defensive back held his leg for a little too long. Not a fan of that. Also, some screenshots, some screen grabs I saw online after the game. Before that, like the first tackler is falling backwards and looks like he tries to trip Zay Flowers. So, not everybody was perfect on that play, but of course, like there was also a Kelsey taunting. Somebody was taunting Kelsey and they threw a flag in the first half, and that came because Kelsey taunted the defender, and then the defender was the second person to get seen by the ref, and he got the flag, and that was Van Noy. And it literally was just a chest bump. Their helmets kind of hit a little bit, like probably what happens on 85% of plays in the NFL. But who gets the taunting penalty? Not Travis Kelsey, Van Noy. And this is a case, Zay Flowers getting tackled after a big play, energy is up. Maybe a little dirty action before and after the tackle, and he gets up and he shows off, and that's a taunting penalty, unfortunately. Shortly after, he has another 14-yard catch, and then a short pass up the middle in which he dives for the end zone to make the score 17-14 and mount a comeback against the Chiefs to begin the fourth quarter. But the ball is punched out by L'Jarius Sneed, and recovered by Kansas City for a touchback. Bummer. Bummer for the Ravens. Bummer for Ravens bettors. But it was probably one of the more athletic plays where L'Jarius Sneed is making that tackle at the 1. And we've seen the punch-out play become more and more prevalent throughout the NFL where these guys practice it. They're all super fast, athletic, strong. It doesn't matter. They used to say, even when I played football for a little bit, that you hold the ball, nose in, tight to your body. But even when like Saquon Barkley's doing that on the run, and Saquon is a beast, and they're still punching the ball out. So it doesn't matter what you do. They're going to find a way to punch that ball out if they want to, and if they hit it just right. And that is exactly what L'Jarius Sneed did. And the ball rolls into the end zone, touchback. The touchback play, which they're going to look at in the offseason as well. People think it's unfair that if the ball is punched out at the 1 and rolls into the end zone, why is it a touchback instead of just bringing the ball back to the same spot on the field? Because if you fumble forward, it doesn't count. You can't fumble forward. It has to go back to where the fumble occurred. So they'll look at that in the offseason. Shame for the Ravens because it's a touchback currently. They don't score. The Chiefs get the ball back. Lamar Jackson, fastest guy on the field probably. And again, I don't know. Sometimes he makes some questionable throws. Forced the ball to Isaiah Likely into triple coverage, which results in an interception, but could have been a flag because when we replay, which when you're watching it live, everything's moved so quick it's hard to see some of these. But when you replay it, they don't call a flag. Leaning towards the public thinking the Chiefs get all the flags. And this was a case where they might have because Isaiah Likely, which one my gripe with Isaiah Likely, he's double covered when the ball's in the air. And he's double covered before the throw. He looks back in double coverage and does one of these, like, throw me the ball, I'm open. He's not open. So Lamar Jackson's attention goes to him with the hand up. He throws it. Now Lamar Jackson could have thrown it through the end zone, through the upright, and let Isaiah Likely, who is a giant man, go up and catch it. But instead, he kind of underthrew it. Or did he? Because when we rewatch it, Isaiah Likely is pushed by one of the 3 defenders to the ground, and that ball lands right where Isaiah Likely was likely going to be if he wasn't pushed, which is defensive pass interference for those keeping score at home. No flag. Interception, Chiefs get the ball back. So another big mistake. And the Ravens can't amount this comeback. But the score remains close. And then with 2:34 left in the fourth quarter, the Ravens on a drive end up kicking a 43-yard field goal with Justin Tucker. But the Ravens have 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning after that field goal. So it's 17-10. They kick the field goal, which is also another decision that'll come up in the Lions and 49ers game, kicking the field goal, going for the touchdown. But for now, we stick with Ravens and Chiefs. The Ravens, with 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning with 2:34 left, they kick it deep instead of onside kicking. Now, you go, why not give your offense a chance and kick the onside kick? They debate it on the telecast, and you just kind of, you immediately understand it. Great job by the broadcast because they go, Tucker is 1 for 17 on career onside kicks. So the man is a wizard, kicking 60-yard field goals, etc. Not very good for onside kicks. And apparently nobody is, because onside kicks were something like 2 for 47 this season. So the conversion rate for onside kicks, not very good, not a very solid play. If you need an onside kick, you're better off waiting for Jesus to come back because it's probably not going to happen. It might happen, but it's probably not going to happen, at least when you're attempting that onside kick, statistically. So they kick it deep, 2 timeouts, 2-minute warning, and you know what? It almost works, but we'll get to that in a second. But rounding out, Roquan Smith, also insane high football IQ, higher than Snoop Dogg. The Ravens have a penalty, and this is to try and get the ball back on that next drive. The Ravens penalty, It brings the Chiefs to 1st and 5. Now, 1st and 5, 2 timeouts, 2-minute warning. 5 yards, less than 10. Now you know, if you didn't know. Roquan Smith, purposeful offsides. And he gets an unnecessary roughness penalty because he drives through an offensive lineman. Now, the broadcast, a little slow. They go, whoa, big mistake. That's going to be 15 yards. And then, literally it takes a minute. And then you go, oh, he wanted them to get the 1st and 10. And the clock remains stopped. And that is why he got a purposeful unnecessary roughness penalty. So the 15-yard penalty is something that the Chiefs felt they couldn't, felt that they had to accept, as opposed to if it was just a general offsides, they might have kept it 1st and 5, and not taken the yardage. But Roquan goes offsides, gets the 15-yard unnecessary roughness while the clock is stopped, gets them to 1st and 10, and the forced accepted penalty, and then the Ravens actually on that drive get the Chiefs to 3rd and 9, and the clock is stopped. They have no timeouts. There's 2:19 left, so the 2-minute warning is ahead. So a 4th down gets them to the 2-minute warning, gets them the ball back, gets them a chance to tie this game up and go to overtime. But if you watch the game, you know that didn't happen because Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the most ironic player to send the Chiefs to the Super Bowl, makes the biggest catch potentially of his career. And that comes off of Mahomes' scramble. And it looks like if you're watching it live, you go, oh my gosh, nobody's open. They're going to get the ball back, the Ravens that is. And this game is going to overtime. And that doesn't happen because Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT, sends his team to their 5th Super Bowl during his tenure as he hits MVS falling backwards for 32 yards. And MVS is wide open because he gets behind a defender, but more so, he sucks. So the defense was like, who cares that he's back there? It's almost like if, Shaquille O'Neal lines up on the 3-point line and he shoots a 3, you go, yeah, shoot it. We don't care. Go for it. And that's exactly what happened with MVS because he got a little bit behind a defender. And honestly, if he is, just like his play, a week 11 against the Eagles, he had that game-winning drop, which cost me a little bit of money, but we won't talk about that. But he has that big game-winning drop with diving catch where he doesn't catch it and makes up for it here to send his team to the Super Bowl, and with that big falling down catch for 32 yards. But this game was fantastic, and all the haters can shut up because the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are America's team. Get over it. It wasn't that long ago. I remember seeing that map with all the teams with all the states, and they were different colors based on who they wanted to win the Super Bowl. And when the Chiefs played the when the Chiefs played the Patriots in the division championship, everybody was Chiefs. Everybody hated the Patriots. And now it's amazing what winning will do, because now when they showed that map and they showed it against the Ravens, everybody was Ravens and only Kansas City was red for the Chiefs. So I don't want to hear it. The Chiefs are good for the sport. I love watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I will be giving out my Super Bowl pick later in this podcast. But I'm excited for the Super Bowl. And we'll get to who they're playing against right now as we go over the Lions, who visited the San Francisco 49ers and lost. 49ers 34, Lions 31. So we're getting a rematch of Chiefs 49ers, which I love. That Super Bowl was fantastic, and I'll get to my story about that Super Bowl in a second. But Lions 49ers, you usually can't pick a single moment that costs a team a game. But here's some that stood out to me. C.J. Gardner-Johnson waves goodbye to 49ers fans up 21-7 with 5:54 left in the second quarter. Now, anybody who gambles or is a little bit superstitious knows you don't celebrate a win before it happens. And up 21-7, it might look all but finished, especially at 21-7, they pretty much dominated. It looked like every time the offense touched the ball, they could not be stopped. Jamar Gibbs was having a great game. David Montgomery looked strong. Amon-Ra St. Brown was open. Sam Laporta was open. Goff was hitting receivers when they were wide open. The offensive line was playing good against the 49ers defense. The stadium was quiet. It looked good. And that's why you just enjoy the moment, CJ. You don't wave goodbye to fans before you punch the ticket. And that came back to bite them in the butt. But not the only thing that I think cost them this game. But as a superstitious man, what set it off, what the first domino to fall, if you will. Next up, the Jamar Gibbs fumble, up 24-17, middle of the third quarter. It was when the 49ers were beginning to mount their comeback, and Jamar Gibbs, they get the ball back and literally fumbles on the first play of the drive and immediately gives the 49ers a chance to tie the game on the wrong side of the field for the Detroit Lions. And Jamar Gibbs didn't have a terrible game, but one fumble can cost your team the game. But more importantly, it's not just the players. It's not just the plays. The head coach usually gets the blame. And Dan Campbell seems to be so confused about what to do on fourth down. Brandon Staley walked so Dan Campbell could cost his Lions team their first Super Bowl in franchise history. It was absurd. He thinks way too long about going for it on fourth to end the first half when they were up 21-7. It looks like he's going for it. You're excited for him to go for it. He has a history of going for it. They don't have faith in their kicker, Badgley. And it was a split-second decision, and he runs the field goal unit out onto the field and kicks a field goal to go up 24-7 to go into the half. Now, at the time, I'm okay with it because I'm going, you know what? They're up 3 scores now instead of 2. If they go for it and don't get it, and don't get the 3 points, and the 49ers get the ball first, all of a sudden it's still a 2-score game. You want to get the points. You want to take the points. And I'm okay with the field goal there. But then, inconsistency. They're up 24-10 in the third quarter. He goes for it on 4th and 2 at the San Francisco 28. Now the pass is right into Josh Reynolds' hands. He can't hold on to it. Maybe not necessarily a bad decision, but hindsight always 20/20. Josh Reynolds catches the ball. The Lions might be in the Super Bowl. But again, it's never just one thing that costs a team the game. But the fourth down confusion was something that most definitely influenced this Lions loss. As again, they're down 27-24 in the fourth quarter. A field goal ties the game now. He goes for it on 4th and 3 at the San Francisco 30 this time. Incomplete pass deep to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They give the ball up. And that's pretty much it. Because CMC gets in again, his second rushing touchdown of the game. CMC's a beast. We'll get to it in a second. But on all these fourth down plays, not a single run. 4th and short, 4th and short, 4th and short. I'm okay with not kicking. I'm also okay with kicking. I would like to see consistency across the board. Either kick or don't kick. Or if you want to play it by, in-game decisions and not go completely by analytics, you could do that too. But it didn't seem like that's what was going on with Dan Campbell. But they didn't run anything with Gibbs and Montgomery on fourth down in any of these scenarios. When Jamar Gibbs was averaging 3.84 yards per carry, David Montgomery was averaging 6 yards per carry. I'm not a math whiz, but 4 and 6 is bigger than 3, which was the longest that any of those fourth downs were. And they ended up kicking the field goal on the first one, and on the second and third one, throwing the ball. And not short throws. They were long throws. A long throw up the middle to Reynolds, long pass up the right to Amon-Ra St. Brown, both drops. And not the only mistake Dan Campbell did to cost his team the game. Because I can live with all 3 of those mistakes on fourth down. He's been a fourth down professional all year. Going for it. Balls on the table. Biggest balls in the NFL, Dan Campbell. But running the ball on third down at the end of the fourth quarter, when you need to keep all 3 timeouts to have a chance to win, because again, you cannot recover an onside kick. But he passes on first down at the goal line with roughly a minute left in the fourth quarter, passes on second down, both incompletions, and then on third down, you go, don't do it. Please don't do it. You need the timeouts. And what does he do? For the first time in all 3 of those scenarios that I just mentioned, he decides, let's run it with Jahmyr Gibbs at the most inopportune time because he gets stuffed. The clock runs. They need to use one of their 3 timeouts, and that's when the game ends because they get a pass to Jameson Williams, who gets his second touchdown of the game, which in a loss, only 4 touchdowns on the year for Jameson Williams. He gets the first and the last touchdown in this game, a 2-touchdown game, and he was an absolute monster, by the way. The first touchdown, he broke for 42 yards. It was a nice run. He gets caught by his shirt tail and just runs faster than his legs because he almost toppled forward and found his way into the end zone. It was a fantastic run. And on this last touchdown, again, the Lions lose even with the touchdown, but if you're a Detroit Lions bettor, which was most of the public, you're a winner because that touchdown covers the spread as they only lose by 3. I believe the spread was 7.5. But Jameson Williams was a beast in this game. He also made a sick catch at the 10-minute mark in the fourth quarter where he tips it up, which, I mean, he probably could have caught the ball there, but instead he he makes it harder than it should be because he tips it up. The 49ers defender actually snags it, catches it. They both go to the ground. So you think interception, Jared Goff, interception, because of Jameson Williams' little snafu in the air. But Williams makes up for it and somehow comes up with that ball. So again, one of the more athletic, strongman plays I've seen in the playoffs this season. And it just keeps going over, whether it be the Lamar Jackson pass to himself, the Jameson Williams catch, the Zay Flowers catch earlier. And we got one more, which was the Brandon Ayuk magical catch, which he attributes to when asked post-game.
Before the game, a ladybug landed on my shoe. Y'all know what that means. So that's all I can say, because I don't know.
It happens down 24-10. San Francisco needs all the help they can get, and they get it. Purdy throws a ball. Lucky hits the defensive back in the face. Brandon Ayuk keeps his eye on the ball, catches it for 51 yards. Brandon Ayuk, also a funny clip of him. ESPN, he's watching ESPN Top 10 in bed day after the game, after the NFC Championship, and he's number 2. And he goes, who's number 1 if I'm number 2? And it was the Lamar Jackson catch, and he was like,
man, get the
it's kind of funny that this guy, just he's going to the Super Bowl, made one of the sickest catches to basically send his team to the Super Bowl, and he just wants to be number 1 on ESPN. These guys are so competitive. Even when the competition is over, they're still competitive. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk, great catch. Jameson Williams with the 2 touchdowns. And Jameson Williams, you're waiting for him to do it all year, and then he does it on the biggest stage. Did everything he could to help his team win this game. Especially catching balls from Jared Goff, because he had some big missed throws that could have changed the game and taken the energy completely out of the stadium. They had a great flea flicker play. And whenever you see a flea flicker now, everybody's so fast. As soon as the flea flicker play develops, you're like, somebody's open. There's a big play about to happen. It's rare that you see a flea flicker and the ball doesn't end up in a receiver or running back's hands, and it ends up being a huge gain. Everybody's just too quick now. The trick play, there's not a lot of trick plays that work as well as the flea flicker, just getting the entire defense to go to one side. And all you just have Jared Goff sitting there, getting the ball flipped to him. And somehow he just skips it into Reynolds. Pass right up the center. Reynolds has to come back to the ball because Jared Goff underthrows it. But even the underthrow Reynolds tried to come back for was like a sidewinder. He just skips it in there. he doesn't look sharp all game either. He had a missed pass to Laporta in the end zone that was a touchdown. He just doesn't look good. The ball didn't have zip to it. And you partly want to credit that to the 49ers defense because they were fast. And he knew they were always coming, and he had to get rid of that ball quick. Because if he didn't, he was going to get laid out. They were going to strip that ball. And you could feel him feel the pressure. It was vibrating off the screen. You could see that he was nervous, and he wanted to get rid of that ball at all costs. And again, he just didn't look sharp. And Brock Purdy didn't look that sharp either. He picked it up at the end of the game. All this talk before and leading up to the game from analysts on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Clark, Shannon Sharp, talking about him post-game, saying he's separating himself from Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott. I don't know about all that, but coming into the game, talk about how he's not a game manager. And people were discussing that maybe Jimmy Garoppolo would be a better quarterback for a Super Bowl run. I don't get that. Brock Purdy's young, and you saw it, and you saw him carry out plays that Jimmy Garoppolo could never. I don't know if any of these analysts watched Jimmy Garoppolo when he played this year or last. He's slow as molasses. He's not mobile on the field. His arm strength wasn't there, and Brock Purdy looks good. Now, his detriment is not his athleticism. It's the bad decisions that almost catch up with him in every game, but he plays on the 49ers. So they defense continues to bail him out. His offensive weapons, Deebo Samuel, CMC, even getting a touchdown this past game, Elijah Mitchell, Brandon Ayuk catching balls because of ladybugs. It seems like everything falls his way, but not in the first half because he throws a bad pick. And when he throws that pick and the score was starting to get lopsided, you went, uh-oh. That's at the point my buddy texted me. He goes, the Lions are minus 8.5. I'm taking it. I said, don't. It was slow motion. I went, no, don't do it. Because you knew the 49ers were going to come back in this game. Now, I am in Paris, France, as you can see the Eiffel Tower behind me. So there is no legal sports betting here. And not that I would do it anyway. There's not even illegal sports betting because France is so strict with sports gambling because it's run by the actual government. There's only a few sites that you can log into with a permanent French residence. But their odds, I kind of looked at it, the odds are actually pretty terrible for American football. Obviously, mostly out here is horse racing and also football, or to those of you in the States, soccer. But American football, the odds were pretty trash. And I love gambling on football, but I'm not going to give away money like that. But I didn't even have the opportunity because there's no legal gambling and not that I would, but there's no illegal gambling out here either. So watching as strictly a fan, which was kind of exciting to not have a rooting interest. Though, if you listen to my podcast earlier in the season, and for many weeks, I told you to put a future in on the 49ers, which I think was as high as 8-1, and I told you to put it in as high as 4-1, which is still great because now they're like minus 134 is the early odds that have come out. Line opens at -3, goes all the way to -1.5 as of this podcast filming. But again, talks my buddy out to that bet. He did not place that -8.5. Might have had his money going the right way at +8.5. But saved money, saved a friend from losing money. That's a win for me. Didn't gamble on the game. Having my friend not lose money, that's a win. But Purdy throws that bad pick in the first half, gets a little lucky gets a lot of lucky in the second half with the Ayuk catch. There was a couple. He had a pass to Jennings on 3rd and 4 in the third quarter where he throws across the middle, across his body, and he got lucky because Jennings goes up with one hand and snags it out of the air to get a first down. And at that point, the score is 24-7. And if he doesn't make that catch, it's 4th down, they punt it, The Lions, again, you can't say any single play that cost you a game. That's a play that probably cost you the game. And a little lucky because it was way over Jennings' head, and he went up and got it for his quarterback. Skill players bailing Purdy out. But on the ground, Purdy kind of looked like Lamar Jackson. And actually, Lamar Jackson didn't look like Lamar Jackson on Sunday, not running the ball as much. Purdy, the Lions couldn't cover everybody. You can't account for Debo. You can't account for CMC. I haven't even mentioned George Kittle yet, who looked fantastic. You can't account for Brian Ayuk. And also, look at Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy on the ground had a great game, had something like 30 yards on the ground, all on busted plays where nobody's open and he's just taking off. Jimmy Garoppolo could never. Jimmy INT could never. But obviously the pass off the defensive back's face mask that ends in Ayuk's ladybug catch, another lucky catch, and all of a sudden, Brock Purdy is in talks as a top 5 quarterback in the league somehow. I like Brock Purdy. I'm a Dolphins fan, famously. I don't think Brock Purdy is better than Tua. I think if you put Brock Purdy on the Dolphins, I don't think the Dolphins even make the playoffs. But, winners win. We'll see what happens in the Super Bowl. But let's talk about the Super Bowl. I think this is the best possible Super Bowl outcome. I didn't care about the Lions. I know the public loved the Lions. They were the darlings of all of the NFL. But as a Dolphin fan, I don't care for Dan Campbell. When he was the interim coach, I'm not surprised by all these muff play calls and bad decisions. Now, he's had 3 years as a head coach for the Lions to get better at these things. But when he was an interim coach for the Dolphins, it was bad. Bad timeout usage, bad play calls, doesn't know situational football, and he's gotten better at that, but now on the biggest stage, he muffs it. Which is why I think the 49ers, who were the best team in the NFL all year and never wavered, going against possibly who will go down as the best quarterback of all time in Patrick Mahomes, powered by Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I love this rematch. Of course, they played in 2020 where the Chiefs bested the 49ers 31-20. I was a 49ers better at a watch party filled with Chiefs fans. It was hard to win that entire game and then lose that second half, and everybody's cheering and high-fiving, and I'm sitting there actually really high because a friend of mine had THC gummies, and I wasn't smoking and I wasn't drinking at the time, and he was like, why don't you try one of these THC gummies? And I go, oh, is it strong? And he goes, no, it's not that strong. Just eat one. And then I was high for like the whole second half of the Super Bowl, losing my huge bet on the 49ers as everybody else high-fived and cheered around me on Staten Island. So not one of my favorite Super Bowls. It was a nice time, but not the best memory. Hoping to make better memories as I will be watching the Super Bowl at 12:30 a.m. here in Paris, France, either at a French bar. They actually do ticketed events at some of the bars because football's big out here, and the Super Bowl is the biggest event of the year for the NFL, and so either going to do that or just stream on the couch from here in the apartment. So very excited. But things to get excited for from this Super Bowl: the possible Taylor Swift proposal, which again, plus 190 yes on some betting sites. Will the Chiefs receivers regress to regular season form? MVS is not making another one of those catches. Kadarius Toney had a funny little spat with the Chiefs before this game where they put him as an injury designation, and he comes out and goes, I'm not injured. The Chiefs just sat me. And everybody was like, yeah, bro, we know. You're terrible. When you play, they lose. It's like, at this point, you've played yourself out of playing. They were trying to be nice. They were trying to give you the night off and not make it a deal and say, we're just benching Kadarius Toney. They said, he's hurt. And he was like, I'm not hurt. Don't listen to them. And then they were like, all right, you're not hurt, but you're not playing. So does he play in the next game? Does he play in the Super Bowl? And really, the only receiver that seems to be reliable for the Chiefs has been Travis Kelce, who's not a receiver. He's a tight end. So will he be more in a will he regress to more of a blocker against that strong 49ers defense? Or are they going to continue to trot him out there and put him try and make up the difference for all the receivers that can't catch, and which will leave them more open to the pass rush? So something to look for in the Super Bowl. Will Purdy's luck continue? What's to stop it? Will Patrick Mahomes' luck and the refs on his side, will that count against Purdy's luck? Will a ladybug land on Brandon Ayuk's shoe again before the Super Bowl? If I'm a 49ers fan, I'm just releasing ladybugs in the locker room and just hoping one lands on the receiver's shoes. But which defense will get enough pressure on the quarterback to change the game? My money is on the 49ers, but the Chiefs have had a good defense. The Chiefs' defense has been overlooked because Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. But the Chiefs' defense has been fantastic all year. It's a reason why they've been in these games, even when the receivers suck, is they kept these scores low and kept the game close to allow Patrick Mahomes to be Patrick Mahomes. And Brock Purdy will have to face some of that rush, but it goes both ways. So Patrick Mahomes is going to have to get rid of the ball quick again, probably the same game plan against the Ravens. But I love the 49ers in this game. Early spread, I thought before the game, I tweeted out at Sports OT Rocks, I said this spread is going to be 3.5 because I think that the public is going to hammer the Chiefs. And if that spread comes out at 3.5, Vegas and bookmakers think that the 49ers are winning this game. And that spread came out, and it was -3 immediately after the game. It even money, and that was on FanDuel. I checked, so I'm not sure about all across the board, but on FanDuel at least was -3 even money, and they had +3 for the Chiefs at like -122. So getting ready for people to hammer the Chiefs and juicing it up, and quickly it was bet down to 2.5. Like within 10 minutes, it was Chiefs +2.5. Woke up the next morning, Chiefs +1.5. So I think that is not because they think the Chiefs are going to win. I think that is because so much money came in on the Chiefs that this is now almost a pick 'em. And if I'm picking, which I will be, I will have my money on the 49ers. And I might do something fun like, I think the over-under is 47.5 with the defenses. I'm not a fan of the over-under in a Super Bowl because if that game goes the opposite way and you pick the winner, it's the worst feeling in the world to win that, to lose that bet. So I'm looking currently, obviously we're like still a week, 2 weeks away. I love the 49ers, especially at a pick'em. I love Isaiah Pacheco to get in a rushing touchdown. I love CMC to get a rushing touchdown. And I think if you put that in, you'll have something along the lines of like +370, depending on which site you're on. And +370 for it's both running backs to score, and they have, and the 49ers to win, which somebody's got to win. And I've had my money on the 49ers all year, had that future all year, and I hope you rode with me. But I love the 49ers in this game. I don't care about Patrick Mahomes. I think so much talk has been about, I thought Patrick Mahomes would get back to the Super Bowl. I had them against the Bills. I thought they would beat the Ravens. When they played the Dolphins, I knew the Dolphins were going to lose, but I just thought it was going to be that run. They had such a route. They're on the road. The spreads were always kind of close. They were always like 2.5. Except for the Dolphins game, they were 4-point favorites, 3-point favorites. I just think that the streak is over. I think the 49ers are a more complete team. I don't have faith in the wide receivers for Patrick Mahomes. But you can I don't know, can you beat that Taylor Swift magic, who will be traveling all the way from her Tokyo Eras Tour stop through the night to get back to Las Vegas to watch Travis Kelce play in the Super Bowl. And with her in the box and that Patty Mahomes magic, I just hope when I'm talking to you after the Super Bowl on this podcast, my heart is not broken. Because I just love this 49ers team, and I love Christian McCaffrey. I want to see him. I've wanted to see Christian McCaffrey in the playoffs his whole career, and I think he finally is going to get his chance in the Super Bowl, and I think we have a huge game coming from Christian McCaffrey. I don't know if he'll get in for 2 touchdowns, though the odds would say he would, as he's like minus 220 almost to score once, and I think only like a plus 140 to score twice. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to ball out. I don't know if he's going to have 100 yards, but I think we're going to see something like over 150 all-purpose yards. They're going to get him the ball often. I think the defense is going to pressure Patty Mahomes like he hasn't seen all season. And those short little dump-off passes that they were doing against the Ravens are not going to work. I think they're going to get tackled behind the line of scrimmage often. I think that Deebo Samuel is going to be a huge threat after kind of not being healthy. I think with 2 weeks to get healthy after that injury last week or the week before, I think he is going to be dangerous and fast. They're going to use him on all these screen passes. And between him and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, again, you can't cover everybody. And Brock Purdy, his legs make him such a threat that the only thing I could see costing them in this game is if he starts making some turnovers. Oh, I said it out loud. I don't want to see him. If the stat line at the end of this game is something like Brock Purdy, 240, 15 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, they lost. I don't think they're going to be able to overcome turnovers because the turnovers are not going to come on good spots on the field. The Chiefs defense and L'Jarius Sneed, they're fast. They tackle hard. I need everybody to hold on to the ball. I need everybody to make smart decisions. But I, regardless of who wins this game, am so excited for this Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl. It's the last football game of the year. Not everybody was happy with this season. I thought we had a lot of good shining moments in this season, and I'll highlight some next week on Sports on the Rocks with Ken Larimer, as we won't have a football game to talk about without all the storylines from the Super Bowl that I'm sure will come out this week. But we'll definitely look back and maybe pick like 5 to 10 plays that were really spectacular, or 10 moments that were like, that really summed up the NFL year, because it was a good season. I as a Dolphins fan, it was a great season until everybody started getting hurt like they always do. But I'm looking forward to the rematch, the 2020 rematch of the Chiefs and the 49ers. The Chiefs getting the best of the 49ers last outing. It also wasn't a fantastic year after that last outing, as a few weeks after the Super Bowl, we all got locked in our homes for a few months and then went on the wildest roller coaster of a year and a half, 2 years, to almost where we are now. We're still on that roller coaster that seems to be a downward spiral. But you know what? If there's any team that could get us out of this downward spiral and take us to the promised land, it's the San Francisco 49ers. But for now, I serve you a big glass of what is happening around the sports world.
Hey, yo, welcome. Hit 'em.
Caitlin Clark, Martyr Woman. Caitlin Clark is finding out quickly what it means to be a star athlete, as you don't just get to enjoy the praise and admiration, but also the criticism and diatribe. After she scored 45 points in Iowa's overtime road loss to Ohio State, OSU fans stormed the court, and then came the drama. A student running onto the court seems to bump into Caitlin, sending her flailing to the ground, holding her face, scaring Iowa and OSU officials that she may be hurt. Now, in a pre-internet world, that would be the end of this. Stories would circulate of how court storming is the devil, and player safety, yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. But thankfully, we live in a world where everything is on video, and the internet got to the bottom of this real quick. The student is running onto the court, but seems to try to avoid Caitlin, who then clearly shoves the student to the ground in frustration and then pretends to be hurt. Reminiscent of when a child does something wrong and tries to avoid getting into trouble. Post-game, Caitlin gave a press conference that between her tone and comments screamed sore loser, martyrdom, and victim claiming, and takes a page right out of none other than the LeBron playbook. Number 1, cause an issue and create a fictional story to support your own narrative. She says she is hammered, and then speaks of a hypothetical situation where she could have been seriously injured or have the wind knocked out of her, which we know is not reality, as we've seen the video from 4 different angles at this point, and in each, she clearly beelines for the OSU student and shoves them. 2, deflect personal responsibility. She mentions the OSU AD apologized to her, deflecting any wrongdoing on her part as she clearly shoves the fan out of frustration with the overtime loss. 3, passive-aggressively attack your opposition. Then, in the same breath, she has a passive-aggressive statement about how OSU tried their best to prevent fans from going onto the court. 4, return the focus to basketball even though you are the only person not currently focusing on basketball. None of this is Caitlin Clark's fault. She is a young woman who is influenced by LeBron and his antics on and off the court, which have created a generation of soft, sore losers who only know how to experience success and can engage with failure without attacking others. All of this to say, I love Caitlin. I root for Caitlin. I want Caitlin to have all the success in the world. I think Caitlin could play on an NBA team. She sure flops like she could. But if this whole basketball thing doesn't work out for her, she has a real future in politics. Because she is full of shit. Giannis fires another head coach. What the hell is going on in Milwaukee? The Bucks are roughly 20 games over 500 and just fired their first-year head coach Adrian Griffin. This after just 9 months ago firing their head coach Mike Budenholzer, who led them to a 2021 NBA championship and early exits in the 2022 and 2023 playoffs, albeit to the Celtics and the Heat, who would go on to play in the finals themselves in each of those seasons. When asked if the Bucks were playing to their potential under Griffin, Dame had this to say.
I don't.
Dame, by the way, will start in his first career All-Star game in 12 years. Go figure. And when Giannis was asked if he had something to do with the firing, he either seems to not understand the influence he has on the process, or he is hiding behind the English is not my first language act with comments like this.
Personally, I don't want to be involved in that. I don't like that. Have I been in a position to be asked, what do you think about that, or what do you think about this? Yeah, many times. But I was not involved in the, hiring of Coach Griff.
Prior to being hired by the Bucks, Griffin did interview to be an NBA coach 14 times and was never hired. So maybe the rest of the league saw something the Bucks chose to ignore. Despite being second in the East, the Bucks defense ranks 27th, which was a glaring issue for them this season, and something they hope changes by bringing in Doc Rivers as their new head coach. Why they think Doc, after leading the Clippers and 76ers to a total of 0 NBA championships during his decade-long tenure between the two, and last taking a team to the finals in 2010 when he led the Celtics to a 7-game loss to the Lakers, is a better option than Griffin or previously fired Budenholzer. Your guess is as good as mine. But at the end of the day, in the NBA, the players run the show, not the coaches, and the firing of Adrian Griffin is just another instance of a team blindly hoping a coaching change sparks inspiration amongst their star players. But based on the Bucks player reaction their first game back after the Griffin firing, I'd say the Bucks are in a better place now than they were just one head coach ago. Kayshon Boutte is a gambling man. In a story that will make you say, huh? Former LSU wide receiver and current Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte is out on bail after being arrested and booked in Baton Rouge on a felony count of computer fraud and a misdemeanor count of gaming prohibited by persons under 21. Or in layman terms, he made a FanDuel account when he was still under 21, the legal gambling age in Louisiana, used his mother's credit card along with another person's name and birthday, and placed over 8,900 bets over 2 years, or roughly 12 bets a day. Light work. It's not just the amount of bets that is staggering, but the amount he bet. According to the warrant, between 2022 and 2023, Boutte deposited roughly $132,000, won a total of over $556,000, and only withdrew around $50,000. Speaking from personal experience, I just know with numbers like that, Boutte was sweating that final slate of Hawaii versus Cal Poly and UC Riverside versus Long Beach State, trying to make it all back before bedtime. And it's just a feeling. Court reports also show he bet on college football games 17 times in that monster run, with 6 of those bets being on LSU, 2 of which were included on an 8-leg parlay. A man of my own heart, where he bet himself to score a touchdown and have over 82.5 yards against FSU in their season opener on September 4th, 2022. Very Pete Rose-esque of him. And if you watch the game highlights after the fact, these bets explain why Boutte was needing to be consoled by his quarterback during the game. Boutte, by the way, didn't score, and only totaled 20 yards on 2 catches. Adding to the Boutte gambling lore, he was a big fan of hiding in plain sight, as his reported usernames on FanDuel were Kayshon Boutte 01 and Kayshon Boutte 7, his name and numbers at LSU, and also was betting in the LSU facility. Now, despite all the stupid decisions Boutte made, everyone seems to be confused about why he was arrested. It wasn't because he bet on college football games, though it's frowned upon, and it wasn't because he bet on LSU games while at LSU, which is extra frowned upon. It is because he committed fraud on a legal gambling site, and did it while underage, under the legal age. If there is one thing the FBI doesn't mess around with, it's felony computer fraud, which in this case was Boutte using his mother's credit card to deposit onto FanDuel. And to add the cherry on top, he did it while underage, which, with all the newly legal gambling platforms arising, is a big no-no. This is yet another sports gambling story, Calvin Ridley most recently, or the Tim Donahue NBA scandal in 2007, that should have fans and gamblers question just how many athletes, coaches, and refs are gambling on the games they play in, and how much influence gambling is having on the outcomes of the games we watch. But I'll end this story with some professional analysis from Shannon Sharp.
2 years ago, they arrested his ass. But I tell you what, he got the right name, because where he about to go, they're going to love on Boutte. They're going to tear him up.
What the hell, Vince McMahon? Just days after WWE landed a 10-year, $5 billion deal to stream Monday Night Raw on Netflix beginning in January, and its parent company, TKO, added Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to its board of directors, Vince McMahon has resigned from TKO's board amid a new lawsuit from former WWE employee Janelle Grant. Under state and federal law, including the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the lawsuit seeks to invalidate an NDA Grant entered into with McMahon, which seems to have attempted to cover up some pretty serious allegations. In the lawsuit, Grant alleges McMahon promised her career advancement, as any rich, powerful, megalomaniac CEO of a wrestling entertainment company might do. But that promise quickly turned to sexual exploitation and sex trafficking to other men inside WWE. Allegedly. Almost every allegation is more shocking than the last. McMahon forcefully used sex toys on her, including dildos he named after WWE wrestlers. Grant alleges McMahon defecated on her head during a forced threesome. In an encounter inside a WWE office, McMahon and John Laurinaitis, WWE's former head of talent relations, also a named defendant in the suit, forced themselves on Grant and took turns restraining her for the other. Of course, while saying no means yes and take it, bitch. Gentlemen, McMahon and another WWE executive locked her in an office in WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, and took turns sexually assaulting her while other staff were working in the other room. The suit also claims McMahon instructed Grant to create personalized sexual content for a WWE superstar that he was trying to re-sign. The suit doesn't name the wrestler, but describes him as both a UFC fighter and a WWE talent. Some have identified as Brock Lesnar, though not confirmed. Again, these are allegations by Grant in an ongoing lawsuit, but we do have some concrete evidence to look to, as some explicit text messages from McMahon to Grant were also included in the suit, like a 2020 message that said, "I'm the only one who owns you and controls who I want to fuck you." McMahon sharing nude photos and videos of Grant without consent with other WWE employees, unnamed executives and stars, and directing her to have sex with them. A July 2020 text that said others at WWE wanted to have sex with Grant after seeing the photos on McMahon's phone, and the group laughed when he told them she may scream and try to say no, although it would be difficult to say anything with a cock down her throat. Disgusting. This is an ongoing lawsuit and all just allegations, but McMahon has a very visible history of writing himself into fictional WWE storylines that are somewhat similar to all the allegations we just heard. One, he wrote himself into having an affair with wrestler Trish Stratus in front of his wife. And two, his daughter had a scene where she confronts him about promising sexual favors to his associates when she was only 17 years old. Sounds familiar, no? Again, those are fictional storylines. Wrestling's not real. But a real story was when WWE got an anonymous tip about McMahon's relationship with Grant. They started a board investigation that uncovered other payments by then CEO McMahon to women in the amount of $14.6 million, booked as business expenses. McMahon, of course, was forced out of WWE after that and found guilty of fraud. Not. He just repaid WWE after the internal investigation and returned to the company after. What this lawsuit by Janelle Grant alleges is just that. Allegations. But McMahon has already resigned from TKO's board of directors and cut ties with WWE, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning of this story. Jim Harbaugh pulls a Saban. After taking the Michigan Wolverines to their first national championship win since 1997, Jim Harbaugh is taking his talents to LA to be the head coach of the Chargers. I'm happy for the Chargers. I'm happy for Chargers Nation. I'm happy for Justin Herbert. I think Harbaugh will be an excellent addition to an already competitive AFC West. However, I watched Jim Harbaugh go on SVP after the national championship and get asked his thoughts on going back to the NFL. And his response, through his fake smile and canned laughter,
told him 3 or 4 days ago we're moving spring practice back. We usually start on Valentine's Day, February 14th, because we love football. But this year we're going to move it back. We're going to move it back about a month. That'll be good too. We'll have some nice weather in the spring in Ann Arbor.
Even as recently as January 5th, Harbaugh released a statement saying that he expects that I will be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. Now, as a Dolphins fan, all I could think of was Nick Saban breaking my heart in 2007 and repeating the same mantra over.
I'm not going to be the Alabama coach.
And over.
I'm not going to be the Alabama coach.
And over.
I'm not going to be the Alabama coach.
I'm tired of this double standard coaches are allowed to enjoy, where they come and go as they please, especially in college, where they convince families that they're going to guide and develop their sons into mature men, and in almost all cases, the coach carousel lasts 2 to 3 seasons before they leave for greener pastures, while college athletes are consistently vilified for entering the transfer portal in an attempt to put themselves in the best position to be successful. This dynamic is a microcosm to the boss-employee dynamic we have in our everyday world, where the expectations are always more stringent for employees, where sick days are frowned upon, maternity or paternity leave is fading, and work hours are stretched while pay is thinned. As a pro worker podcast, I would like to see coaches get more flack for leaving student athletes in the dust or stop sensationalizing the transfer portal and treat the whole NCAA like the business that it is. After all, this is America, the land of the free and home of the almighty dollar. And now, last call. MLB Hall of Fame voters, what are you doing with your life that's so great? The 2024 Baseball Writers Association of America has spoken. Needing 289 or 75% of the votes to be elected, the fresh inductees into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame are Adrian Beltre, who gathered 95.1% of the votes, or 366 votes. Todd Helton, gathering 79.7%, or 307 votes. And Joe Mauer, 76.1%, or 293 votes. The outside looking in, Billy Wagner, next year, 2025, being his last year of eligibility, gathering 73.8%, or 284 votes, so almost certainly getting in next year. Gary Sheffield, 63.9%, or 246 votes, this being his final year of eligibility, which I'll get to in a second. And Andrew Jones gathering 61.6%, or 237 votes. Only got 7.3% in 2018. This is his 7th year of eligibility. Players get 10 years of eligibility. Andrew Jones looking like he will get in before that 10th year or in his 10th year, but we shall see. PEDs, always a big thing keeping guys out of the Hall of Fame. Famously, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens still not getting in. Their eligibility is up, but players can actually get voted in by a committee. The committee is 16 members, and they can actually, if you get 12 out of the 16 to vote for you, you can actually get into the Hall of Fame. So you don't need this Baseball Writers Association. You can get in with this special committee, getting 12 of the 16 votes. Though Barry and Roger still not getting in. But PEDs, who's getting held back by PEDs? Gary Sheffield. Again, this was his final year of eligibility, and he misses by over 10%. Never tested positive for PEDs, but for some reason has this aura that he took PEDs. Now, I'll get to this as well in my point in a minute. The baseball writers never liked Gary Sheffield, and for good reason. Gary was kind of an asshole. I have a story about Gary Sheffield. I was a kid, grew up in Florida. We went to a Florida Marlins game at Pro Player Stadium. Shows you how old I am. We got field passes for the day where we got to go on to the field pregame. It was like fan day. All the players were sitting in these little like director's chairs, two at a time, two. Players at the time that I wanted to see. Gary Sheffield, Bobby Bonilla, Jeff Conine, and I'm losing one. Fernandez, pitcher, Fernandez. Now, Fernandez was fantastic. Jeff Conine was there, Mr. Marlin. However, he had the longest line, and it never got any shorter. So I have a picture. If I could find it, I will put it right now into this podcast. Might not be able to find it, but it's like a picture with me with all my sleeveless Marlins gear, looking really tan and like I'm like 7 years old. My Marlins hat, and way behind me you could see Jeff Conine sitting, greeting fans because the line was so long. My mom and dad were like, "We're just gonna stand here and take a picture of you. It'll be like you're with him." And I didn't care. I really wanted to see Fernandez, and I really wanted to see Bobby Bonilla and Gary Sheffield. Again, saw Fernandez. He was fantastic. Bobby Bonilla never showed up. Gary Sheffield never showed up. So even my experience with Gary Sheffield, I was like, fuck this guy. So as a writer dealing with him every day, I would also probably not write him in to the Baseball Hall of Fame. But I'll get more to that in a second. Alex Rodriguez, 34.8% or 134 votes. This is his third year on the ballot. He actually lost votes. And traditionally, if your votes go down as opposed to up, it doesn't look very good for you to get into the Hall of Fame. Manny Ramirez, 32.5% or 125 votes, of course suspended in 2009 and 2011 for violating the MLB's PED policy, probably not getting in. And Andy Pettitte, 13.5% or 52 votes, admitted in 2007 to HGH use twice in 2002, probably not getting in. Now, I'm okay with the guys who took PEDs not getting in. However, if everybody was taking PEDs at the time, wasn't it an even playing field? But we've talked that off the bridge. We could talk about PEDs and HGH and baseball and sports forever. I'm always a proponent to juice everybody. I want to see the best performance on the field and the court. I don't care what they're taking. If they're okay with doing it to their bodies. But not what Last Call is about today. Last Call today is you always hear of some of these writers that have personal grudges against certain players. You also hear that some of these writers have these weird voting habits, that they don't vote a guy in during his first year of eligibility, or they only vote for 2 years in any given 2 players in any given year. Now, why do the baseball writers get to be the gatekeepers of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame? Most baseball writers don't even watch all the games. I've spoken to plenty of writers, and they will write because of the turnaround time. It might be a little different now with that it's not newspapers, but growing up as a multimedia journalist, you talk to sports writers, writing the articles before the game is over and just filling in the blanks and sending it because the turnaround time was so quick. So most of the baseball writers are not even watching all the games. The Baseball Writers Association, in conjunction with the Hall of Fame voting, is giving Electoral College. The thought that the people, or fans, cannot be responsible for selecting a fair and balanced Hall of Fame is old. It's dusty. It's crusty. If we are going to replicate American voting structure, let's include some checks and balances so we don't have these baseball writers feeling too self-important. Maybe have the fans, former coaches and players, and the baseball writers vote and take a true consensus of the baseball community. And I'm not alone with this opinion. As writers for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and the Baltimore Sun said that they actually are no longer permitted by their employers to vote for the organization's awards under the rationale that journalists should report the news and not make it, which is exactly my point. Why do I even know a baseball writer's voting process? Because it's all about them. I don't need to hear about the Indiana Gazette guy's opinion on whether or not Alex Rodriguez should get into the Hall of Fame. I loved watching A-Rod. A-Rod is one of the best baseball players of my time and probably of all time, despite if he used PEDs. Barry Bonds is, I would argue, one of the best, if not the best hitters of all time, regardless if he was using PEDs. If he was using PEDs, the pitchers who were pitching to him were using PEDs. So why does the guy from the, the Wisconsin Sun, why do I have to hear his voting process? Why do I care what he thinks about the baseball players? I want a fan vote. I want to hear from the people who watch the games and who play in the games and who have played in the games and knows what it takes to be a Hall of Famer. Obviously, current players and coaches should be left out, but I like the idea of former player, coaches, fans, almost like an all-star vote. But again, if we're going to replicate a democratic voting system, let's have some checks and balances. I want everybody to check each other. Let's get a full consensus. That way, if the baseball writers decide, this guy only gets, we need 75% of the vote, but we're only getting him 73.8%, and he gets, everybody who watches the game is like, oh, we love this guy. He's a fan favorite. He's a great baseball player. Let's get him into the Hall of Fame. Just because you potentially think that he might have touched HGH, one time, maybe, even though he never tested positive, why should he be left out of the Hall of Fame? I'm tired of every year when the Hall of Fame comes out, it's like, this guy didn't get in, and then these guys tweet out their ballots or they post their ballots online, and they're like, well, I didn't vote for him this year because I never vote for guys the first year they get in. Or this guy I didn't get along with in the post-game press conferences, and he never talked to me, so I'm not going to vote for him until year 5 or 6 or never. I'm tired of hearing about it. And again, just the fact that, again, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Baltimore Sun don't even let their writers participate in the vote because they feel like the journalists shouldn't be making the news. They should be reporting on it. You would think that would be across the board at all newspapers. But I think as we see more and more of these baseball writers die off and younger writers take over their positions, or they're never filled. We'll find out how news evolves as we get older. I think we'll see the Hall of Fame kind of evolve into a more modern process, and we'll see how it continues to move forward. But I saw the article, and I was just like, I need a quick rant about this because I'm tired of hearing about it. Put the best players in the Hall of Fame. Don't leave it up to these old McCrudgeon baseball writers. Who even are they? I tried to find a list, by the way, to share. There's no consistent list. It's like a hidden vote that's not hidden. There's like an ever-evolving list of people who get a vote, who don't get a vote, who are tenured, who don't even write anymore. It's very interesting. But that's the last call. And thanks for tuning in to this episode of Sports on the Rocks with Ken Larimer. This was episode 8. And welcome to 2024. I'll be doing the next few episodes from Europe, from Paris, France. I'm looking forward to talking a little more about looking ahead to the Super Bowl. There's some great stories. We got NBA basketball is firing on all cylinders. Baseball's coming up. We have the Olympics actually happening in Paris. That's coming up. Golf, big PGA Live stories, flying off the shelves. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you again. And we're back on Sports on the Rocks with Ken Larimer. Again, if you enjoy the show, you can always catch it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please follow, like, and subscribe. Catch me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at SportsOTRocks. And you could also follow my personal account at KenGoAllNight. I'm a little more active on Ken Go All Night. I try to share the Sports OT Rocks. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see everybody next week. Don't forget to tip your bartenders. See you later.